We are all set then. Arguably modern day cricket's most intense rivalry, India v Australia. It kicks off at the Adelaide Oval, and that is where our attention lies on ESPNcricinfo Matchday. Looking ahead to that first test, Ajit Agarkar, and I also welcome Brad Hodge for the first time on the show. Ajit, let me go to you first. Expectations from India. What are the realistic expectations now after all that's being said about this Australian team?
Yeah, I mean, look, this Australian team still playing in Australia, so they're very familiar to these conditions. I don't think India's ever had a better chance, at least before the series starts or on paper, to ever go to Australia and perhaps expect to win a series. They'll still have to play well. I think this Australian team, forget the UAE, at home they'll still be a formidable force. Their bowling attacks fit as well, so it'll be a tough challenge for India. But if you're to look at the history and the amount of times India's toured Australia, this is perhaps their best chance to win a series if they do play well.
I wonder if all this optimism surrounding India, Hodge, almost plays into Australia's favour. First home test for them after everything that went down at Newlands. What are you expecting from the Australians?
Well, we're just hoping to come out and play some really good cricket. As Ajit mentions, we are playing on home soil, so there's a lot of expectations for our cricket side to deliver. It's an awfully hard place for countries to come over and be successful, in a touring Australian place. Having said that, I do agree with Ajit that this is India's greatest chance to actually come away with a series win away from Australia.
All right. Well, let's go to Ajit Agarkar's three-point plan then as we look ahead to the first test. And there has been a 12 that's been announced by the Indian team, as is customary in recent times. Getting the playing 11 right is Ajit's first point, and the choice lies between Rohit Sharma and Hanuma Vihari for now between the 12. Go with a specific bowling plan, and lastly, guard against fuller deliveries. Right, Ajit? Let's get into your top 3 points, starting with the playing 11. It looks like a toss-up between Rohit Sharma and Hanuma Vihari.
Yeah, I'm just glad that they have. I mean, it's imperative to pick the right 11 in any test match you play. But first test, I think India's been sometimes a little bit too over-aggressive, if you like, in South Africa and England, where they've picked 5 bowlers. They could perhaps do that with Hardik Pandya available, but I'm glad that they're going with 6 batters. It's a tough choice. Every time you see Rohit bat, you'd think you should pick Rohit. I just feel Hanuma Vihari deserves another opportunity, obviously, after getting that 50 in that last test in England. So I'd stick with him at the moment. I think in the tour game, I think most batters got runs, but he's got some runs as well. So, Rohit might have to wait for his chance to come around. So I'm just glad that they're going with 6 batters. I think in that first test might be heavy workload for the bowlers, but the bowlers are quite fresh, so they should be able to very well take that.
Yeah, if anything, it's the bowlers that drive this optimism surrounding India for this series. Now let's talk about the specific bowling plan. You know more than most bowlers that you need to get the length right at Adelaide. Do you think India have got it in them, and what specifically do they need to focus on as this first test comes up?
Yeah, I mean, Hodge might speak about it a bit later, because now it's a drop in wicket, so it's a little bit different to what it was in the past. But like any conditions, you want to try and quickly get that length right. I mean, in Australia, every time I've bowled, it afforded me that little bit of extra bounce, which kind of helped me. But most of the Indian guys, Bumrah, Ishant and Shami, generally get some decent bounce with their actions or their height. So that should help them. So that length's key. I mean, the great Glenn McGrath always spoke about how you want to try and hit the knee roll of the batsman or the top of off stump. So that is the sort of length on any pitch that you find. It is obviously going to be a little bit different to Ishant than what it is for Shami. And Bumrah, I mean, keeps surprising you and keeps impressing every time he bowls. So I think he's quite sorted in his head. But you can almost afford to bowl a little bit fuller in Australia.
Now, if they do get that length up, there is a vulnerability, isn't there, Ajit, for batsmen? Because while we all expect the Australian bowlers to trouble India with bounce, or maybe that's the perception, that they might just be caught out with the one that's slightly fuller.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Indian batsmen are well aware of it. Like you said, there's a perception of it. Okay, Mitchell Starc and Cummins in particular can hustle batsmen. But I don't think Australians are that naive. I think these are home conditions for them. There might be periods in the game where they try and intimidate batsmen or try and go after batsmen with the short stuff, but that will be because there's a plan or there's a situation in the game. I don't think they are naive enough to do that, because every bowler or every think tank knows the wickets usually come when you pitch the ball up.
Take a breather while I get Brad Hodge in for his 3-point strategy plan now, and let's have a look at what Hodge's pinned out for Australia, which is key. Pick early wickets. Their seam attack is at full strength again after a couple of them missed out in the UAE. Mitchell Starc, Josh Hazlewood, Pat Cummins all together. Usman Khawaja needs to score big. He'll have a debutant ahead of him in this test along with Aaron Finch to open, and to figure how to get Virat Kohli out. The obsession that the Australian media and all the series build-up seems to have with Virat Kohli. Right, let's get into it. Early wickets then. Hodgie, let's get into why this three-man pace attack could still pose problems to India.
Yeah, they certainly are early wickets here at Adelaide, because generally it does flatten out in the afternoon, and being a day test match, then it really plays into the Indian batsman's hand. I think Murali Vijay has been a thorn in Australia's side in the last 5 test match series they played out here. I think he averaged 60. Pujara is quite capable of batting time as well, which, if you expose the middle order to a half-worn ball, where our quicks can't have a serious impact with the new ball, then I think Australia will be in trouble, and India will post a big score in which their bowling can bowl to.
All right, let's talk about the reliance on Usman Khawaja now, who you think will have to lead this Australian batting lineup with a debutant ahead of him, and still questions and a big test for Aaron Finch. Does he have it in him, though, to lead the entire batting lineup through the course of a whole home summer?
Well, he's going to have to. He's the only batsman that averages, above 50 in our test match side. So everyone else is very vulnerable. Aaron Finch only played 2 test matches. Marcus Harris makes his debut, of course. Sean Marsh has still got a few question marks over his abilities, where he only averages 35. We know one thing, that Usman Khawaja is easily our best player outside of Steve Smith and David Warner, and he'll have to carry our fortune hard for a long period of time this summer.
Now, I don't know if you managed to see that video that cricket.com.au put out on Twitter of Virat Kohli batting in the nets. He seems to have warmed up in some style. So how on earth do the Australians get him out?
Well, no idea, actually. He's such an outstanding player that I'm sure the brains trust in the Australian cricket dressing room to trying to come up with all sorts of ways to try and get him out. He looks like a man on a mission. He looks like he's in complete control of his game, and he is. He averages 60 in Test match cricket. He's had a really good warm-up, I thought. He smashed the CA11 around everywhere. He got a really good 50 in the T20 series. And I saw him in the net smack him all over the place. So for me, we need to come up with some unformal, traditional way of getting him out.
Let's confirm the playing 11 for Australia, and they've done that on the eve of this test match at the Adelaide Oval. Now, the surprise, if you are looking at it, is that Mitchell Marsh does not find a place in this team. So they've gone in with the extra bat of Peter Hanscom, who makes his place back into the Australian Test 11. Now, does that surprise you? The runs did dry up for Mitchell Marsh in recent times, Hodgie?
It's a little bit of a surprise. I think that in every team you try and get an all-rounder in, and I think the fails in the UAE have probably been the downfall of Mitchell Marsh. But we've chosen the extra fewer batsmen only probably because we think that our top order is vulnerable, just with limited game experience and test match experience, and up against a really good Indian side with good spinners.
Now, it's not an easy time to predict, but that's how I'll end this preview. Given all that you know of both teams now, let's start with you, Brad Hodge. What is an acceptable final, what is an acceptable series result for Australia in this? A draw or a win? Or if they go down, you wouldn't be surprised?
Well, look, we're always looking to win the series, but I think at the moment we're probably vulnerable, and we'll take a draw. I think India go in as favourites, but having said that, as you mentioned, it's very difficult to win a series, away from home.
Never thought I'd say the Australians wouldn't mind a draw, but that's just the climate surrounding Australian cricket. Would the Indians take a draw, or would you still say that if they achieve anything less than a win, it's a disappointment given everything we know, Ajit?
I'm not sure, actually. I mean, I'd still pick Australia slight favourites going into the series. I think if India bat well, they have a real chance. I don't think India has had a better chance in Australia before. So if it's a drawn series, they might be happy, but I don't think Virat Kohli would want a drawn series. I think there's a real chance to win this time.
All right, many thanks, Brad Hodge and Ajit Agarkar. Get your thoughts right through this Adelaide Test that kicks off the first of 4 tests between India and Australia this summer.
Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and leave your comments in the comment section below. click on the bell icon for notifications.